Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have an exciting show for you tonight. We have Dr. Thomas Orvald. Hey, it's going to work so much better when I put this microphone on. We've got Dr. Thomas Orvald, who we're happy to have back on the show, and we have Madeline Martinez and Tim Pate providing musical accompaniment. Hi, Tim.
Good evening, everyone. Hey.
Hey.
And we'll be back with more interesting hemp news and film clips and lots of fun. Just stay tuned and let's bring on our infamous dancing cannabis leaves. Okay, our first story tonight is from the U.S. News and World Report. This story is, like a lot of others out there, but it's by Alex Kingsbury. President Obama couldn't have been clearer about his take on the so-called war on drugs. In 2004, he called decades of get-tough law enforcement, quote, an utter failure, end quote. So it doesn't come as much of a surprise that the new Attorney General, Eric Holder, hinted this month that the new administration will take a radically new approach to one drug issue in particular, medical marijuana. Holder told a news conference this week, quote, what President Obama said during the campaign is now American policy, end quote. Despite Obama's well-known views, Federal Drug Enforcement Administration agents raided a few pot dispensaries in California 2 days after his inauguration, despite a state law permitting limited use and sale of medical marijuana. The raid came before Holder's confirmation, and it seems that no one in the new administration told the DEA to stop raiding some of the state's storefront dispensaries. The DEA has hit a few dozen every year since they began appearing in 2003. This time, the agency was continuing on autopilot under Michael Lionheart, a holdover from the Bush years who remains in charge of the DEA until a successor is picked. The White House moved quickly to quiet the nervous uproar from the outraged left. Nick Shapiro, an Obama spokesman, said, quote, federal resources should not be used to circumvent state laws, end quote. Holder's latest remarks appear to signal that the raids will end. The approach to states' rights in this case, however, is a notable departure from the one used to desegregate schools, close military bases, prosecute civil rights abuses, and link a drinking age to federal highway funds. According to Paul Rothstein, a law professor at Georgetown University, quote, frankly, it's extremely rare for the federal government to allow the states to say that something's legal when the federal law says the opposite, end quote. Not enforcing federal law in this instance is perhaps just a more politically palatable way of acknowledging how the political landscape of marijuana has changed in the past few years, said Bill Piper, Director of National Affairs for the Drug Policy Alliance, which pushes for more lenient drug laws. Legal experts say whether Obama continues the DEA raids against the dispensaries, which now seems highly unlikely, is beside the point. A dozen states now have laws similar to California's, although often less permissive, and surveys show that the public generally supports some limited relaxation of drug laws for medical marijuana. States with swollen, costly prison populations are rethinking their sentencing policies for all kinds of nonviolent drug offenders. The New York State legislature is considering revamping the most famous of these codes, the Rockefeller laws, which would be the first such move by the state in a generation. Meanwhile, advocates of revamping the nation's drug laws encourage Obama to take a page from Franklin Roosevelt, who spent his first few days in office fixing the crippled banking industry before overturning prohibition. They wave economic studies arguing that ending marijuana prohibition would create billions in tax revenue and allow the police to focus on more serious offenses. Repealing the 18th Amendment sent millions of dollars into the government coffers by 1934 when breweries turned on the taps. According to Piper, we're not there yet, but ending these punitive DEA raids is a very encouraging step. But with the vice president who helped create the position of the White House drug czar, Obama seems unlikely to take radical steps. Throughout the campaign, he stated clearly that he was not in favor of legalizing marijuana. Yet incremental moves can be powerful. And while the DEA head hasn't been chosen, Gil Kurlogowski, Seattle's police chief, will reportedly be Obama's drug czar. If his record is any indication, the war on drugs may be due for a change in tactics. Since he took over in Seattle in 2000, misdemeanor marijuana possession arrests there have fallen by half. Administration officials are hinting that the DEA raids on medical marijuana sellers will end. This is a story from U.S. News Report. Came out today, February 27th, written by Alex Kingsbury. From New Jersey, in Trenton, the capital, members of the New Jersey Senate voted Monday 22-16 in favor of Senate Bill 119, the New Jersey Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act. The measure would permit authorized patients in state-licensed alternative treatment centers to use and legally produce cannabis under state law. If enacted, New Jersey would become the 14th state to allow the state-authorized use of medical marijuana. Members of the state assembly must vote on the companion bill, Assembly Bill 804, before the proposal can go before the New Jersey governor. On Wednesday, New Jersey's Democratic Governor Jon Corzine reiterated his support for the bill, saying that he would absolutely sign the measure into law if it's approved by the state assembly. From California, Assemblyman has introduced a measure to regulate marijuana like alcohol, a proposal that will raise $1.3 billion per year for the state's tax collection agency. State Assemblyman Tom Aminio, whatever it is, he's a Democrat from San Francisco, introduced legislation this week to legalize and regulate the commercial production and sale of cannabis for adults aged 21 or over. The proposal, California Assembly Bill 390, the Marijuana Control, Regulation, and Education Act, is the first bill ever to be introduced in the California legislature that seeks to tax and control the sale of cannabis. Amiano, that's it, introduced AB 390 at a press conference Monday. Joining the assemblyman in support of the measure were Betty Yee, chairwoman of the California Board of Equalization and Taxation, Oakland City Council member Rebecca Kaplan, Orange County Superior Court Judge James P. Gray, who's retired and a longtime drug war opponent, and Dale Geringer, coordinator of California's chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, which provided legislative text and financial analysis for the bill. Amiano said, quote, "With the state in the midst of an historic economic crisis, the move toward regulating and taxing marijuana is simply common sense. This legislation would generate much-needed revenue for the state, restrict access to only those over 21, end the environmental damage to our public lands from illicit crops, and improve public safety by redirecting law enforcement efforts to more serious crimes. California has had the opportunity to be the first state in the nation to enact a smart, responsible public policy for the control and regulation of marijuana," end quote. Local news anchors from CBS, ABC, NBC, and the PBS television stations covered the press conference. National stories regarding Amiano's bills have appeared in USA as well as on Air America and CNN. It's introduced, Assembly Bill 390 would raise over $1.3 billion in annual revenue by taxing the retail production and sale of marijuana, according to financial estimates provided by the California Board of Equalization. An economic analysis by California Normal estimates that a legal statewide retail market for cannabis could generate additional revenues totaling some $12 to $18 billion per year. The non-commercial cultivation of marijuana for personal use, defined as 10 plants or fewer, would not be subject to taxation under this proposal. In addition, Assembly Bill 390 would not alter existing legislation on the use of medicinal cannabis, nor would it impose new taxes or sanctions on the medical cultivation of cannabis. A recent Zogby poll of 1,053 likely voters commissioned by California Normal and the Oaksterdam University reported that nearly 6 out of 10 respondents on the West Coast favor taxing and legally regulating cannabis like alcohol. According to Dale Geringer, the head of California Normal, he said, quote, "This bill is a winning proposition for California taxpayers. It's time that California stops wasting resources trying to enforce marijuana prohibition and instead realizes the tax benefits derived from a legal, regulated cannabis market, end quote. Our last story is from Switzerland. Marijuana may be a protective agent against injury, according to a new study. The use of cannabis is not a contributing causal factor in the injuries requiring hospitalization and may even protect users against the likelihood of sustaining such injuries, according to the results of a case-controlled study published online in the journal BMC Public Health. Investigators at Lausanne University Hospital in Switzerland assessed the association between the use of cannabis and or alcohol and the risk of injury among 486 patients aged 16 and older. The investigators reported, quote, alcohol use in the 6 hours prior to injury was associated with an elevated relative risk compared with no alcohol use. Cannabis use was inversely related to risk of injury, end quote. In other words, cannabis use caused less injury, or seemed to be associated with less injuries. Researchers also analyzed subjects' drug use for a time period exactly 1 week prior to the patient's hospitalization. They reported, quote, more patients reported alcohol use in the 6 hour period prior to injury, case period, than in the corresponding 6 hour period the previous week. For cannabis, fewer people reported prior use to injury than in the control period, end quote. Despite the study's relative small sample size, investigators concluded, quote, the results for cannabis use were quite surprising. The present study, in fact, indicates a protective effect of cannabis use in a dose-response relationship, end quote. Commenting on the study's results, the authors speculated that cannabis is consumed in relatively safer, low-risk environments, such as at home, compared to alcohol, which is often consumed at bars or prior to going out in public. A prior case-controlled study conducted by the University of Missouri also reported an inverse relationship between marijuana use and injury risk, finding, quote, self-reported marijuana use in the previous 7 days was associated with a substantially decreased risk of injury. The full text of the study, alcohol and cannabis use as a risk factor for injury, a case crossover analysis in a Swiss hospital emergency department, is available online from the BMC Public Health Department at biomedcentral.com. That's biomedcentral.com. It's the end of our Hemp News segment. How are you over there tonight, Tim?
I am doing just fine. You know, that was a lot of money they're talking about raising down there in California.
It certainly is. Starting out with a couple billion and as many as 18 billion.
Once they start saying billions, their eyes just light up and dollar signs come on.
Yeah, well, they're going to lay off a lot of people or they're going to tax marijuana. Which one will it be?
Which one will it be?
Well, they're sending out IOUs right now.
Well,
returns, so
it's time. It's time that some change happened. I know that one of our dear friends from down in California who has been been convicted of a felony, Reverend Eddie Lepp. He was supposed to have been sentenced on the 23rd of February, and I called this evening before the show to find out what had happened with that, and I'm happy to announce that his sentencing has been delayed again, so he's not been sentenced yet. He's still waiting to find out, and he's still out and home, and at least he's able to live a semi-normal life, and perhaps they'll do the same thing they did to Ed and sentence him for 1 day. We don't know yet, but you can respond. If you want to help Eddie, write a letter. You can write a letter to the judge that's about to sentence him. You can go to his website, Eddie Lepp, medicinalgardens.com, and you can help him by writing a letter to his judge and asking for leniency in his sentencing, because that should be happening fairly soon, but it keeps getting delayed, and this is like the third delay on that case. So
those court cases always get delayed.
They do. They get set aside, but this is a sentencing. He's already been found guilty, but hopefully with new administration and some new attitudes in Washington, some of his sentence will be lessened. Anyway, Eddie, this one's for you. Enjoy the music and the pictures. There's so many warriors. Too many, in fact.
Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce back Dr. Thomas Orvald. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Paul. It's a privilege and an honor to be back on the program.
It's been, about a year, I think, since we've had you on. You've been so busy.
Well,
I know we had you working 5 days this week.
We were down in southern Oregon, and every clinic was jammed full. The clinics continue to grow. The enthusiasm is tangible. And one of the interesting things is that we are starting now to get so many referrals from physicians directly to the clinic, which was an unknown quantity in the beginning, but now physicians, although they may not step up themselves, have asked their patients to go see us in the clinic and have actually called and made appointments for these clinic appointments. So that's encouraging.
That's a big step forward. And how are you doing, Madeline?
Oh, I'm doing just great. Paul brought some show and tell this evening.
That is just a fascinating little chunk of medicine you have there. It's got an imprint on it. Maybe we can get the camera 2 to close in on us here.
It is quite lovely.
You want to tilt it up for her?
It's a 1/4 pound of hash.
A 1/4 pound of hash, just about the size of a chocolate bar, only a lot thicker.
Yeah, it's pretty thick.
Don't eat it in one sitting.
Look at this. It's amazing.
And so you'll be giving some of that away tomorrow, or all of it tomorrow, to the... It's a shame you got to break it up for all those patients, isn't it? It's so
I'm having a really
pretty.
hard time breaking it up. So I did a lot of groveling today for some excess medicine. You know, people have been saying, you need to break that with a hammer, and I just can't do it.
Yeah, well...
But it'll happen. It'll happen eventually. I'll have to get over it.
You seen a chunk of hash that big, Doctor?
May I ask you a question?
Yes, certainly.
There's a very famous American author by the name of Paul Bowles, and he wrote a great book called Sheltering Sky. And he wrote most of the book, Sheltering Sky, under the influence of hashish. He lived in Morocco at that time. The book is marvelous. I never understood what hashish was. Why don't you tell me?
Well, it actually is the resin. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
The
It's the resin or the
cannabis.
trichomes.
The little trichomes all together.
Yeah,
and you wash it. What we do is we put ice in a bag and we run it through that bag with a rotator on a drill. And we agitate it, and then we collect it, and there's different ways to do it. We actually used a bubbleator the last time we did make hash, and it worked out. It's a little laundry, like a lingerie washing machine that they use in Europe. Mm-hmm. Have you seen this? It's pretty interesting. And then you just try to gather all this, harvest all this, and pack it together. This took someone a year to make. I believe it. It's just so heavy.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
It's just beautiful. It really is.
If you're out there tonight and you're watching us, it's the 27th of February, and you can call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We're on cable TV live here in the Portland area, and we're streaming out on the internet through ustream.tv. That's ustream.tv. So if you're here in Portland, tell your friends to tune in on the internet at ustream.tv, and we'll be taking your phone calls for about another 30 or 40 minutes here.
Well, I want to mention something that's going on when we're talking about hashish, is that Stormy Ray, or there's people that have put out a bill, SB 388, which is really distressing to a lot of us, and on Monday there's going to be a hearing at the Capitol, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. We've actually employed the Cool Bus to take a busload of patients down to go and testify.
And that's the biodiesel bus.
The biodiesel bus, yes.
I thought that hearing was from 8 to 10.
8 to 10 on Monday.
Okay, you said 10, so it's from 8 to 10 is what I said.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's make certain it's clear.
Let's
that's
make
important.
it very clear.
So it's going to be in one of the hearing rooms
10.
at the state capitol.
As a matter of fact, Paul, we were going to gather at the THC clinic around 6:30 in the morning so we can make the commute, just so people have a central location.
That sounds like
and
a good
it's
idea
always
to me.
everybody knows the THC clinic, so we
It's
thought
quite
it would
central.
be great. Yes, Yes, it is, and the bus is right there. So yes, 8 to 10 on Monday. So if you want to go, come out to the meeting tomorrow, or just go. Go
Unfortunately,
there.
I will be in Michigan that day, but my heart will be there. And I understand there's a proposal to replace the bad language that would prohibit hashish in that bill and replace it with a better language. Is that right?
Well, I haven't heard that. What I've heard, what I've found in the bill is that it limits the amount of hash that you can have to 2 ounces.
I see,
so this would be
That would
illegal.
be an illegal chunk for one patient.
Yeah, it would be illegal for me to have this, but many patients can
So that's
only
4
use
ounces
hash.
there?
Yeah, well, that's what we waited at.
Well, it must be what it is. The neat little embossment
Yeah,
says
it
Humboldt
really
Gold.
is. Very, very nice.
Gold. Yep.
But so that's concerning to us. And then, of course, it would also allow inspections of our gardens, which I think is a real breach of my privacy.
Yeah,
I don't like
that's
the
a
idea.
violation of the Fourth Amendment.
And it would
There's no doubt
cost our
about
program so much money. Who's going to be trained to go and do these inspections?
that. Yeah, that would take
and
a
I
lot
just
of
really am
resources.
concerned
That would
about
raise
that.
the fees for patients as well.
Right, and so it's very concerning. There's a lot of stuff that will decrease access to medicine, and I really do believe that it's also going to chase off a lot of good growers because you have to sign some paperwork saying that you understand, and so that just adds another layer of liability, in my opinion, and takes away some of the protections that we have right now.
Wasn't there a Dash amendment that would
There
have
is a
allowed...
Dash amendment. That's our Dash amendment. It's Senate Bill 388-1, and what that would do would change the language so that not the caregiver, but currently the caregiver of record or the grower of record is the only one that can be reimbursed for utilities and production expenses. But when the language changes, it would be a card holder, so that it would be the next incremental step in our program, where a person who just has found out they have cancer and are facing chemotherapy doesn't have to wait 4 months, but can go to someone and say, how can I reimburse you? How much is that for an ounce of that? Whatever we find works good for their particular symptoms of nausea. And so that's what I think is important about this change. It would also change from production expenses and utilities. It would change it to time and materials.
Great.
Because people do deserve something for their time, especially when they are putting so much into it. It's not easy, as everybody knows, to grow cannabis.
No, I
It's
hire
a
3
lot of
full-time
work.
people who work on it. So
Yeah,
it takes
so
quite a bit
it
of
does
work.
take a lot of money and a lot of time.
We have a phone caller. Hello, caller. You're on our show.
Hello, thank you for having me on. You guys are doing a great job. I think what you guys are doing and educating is awesome. I have a couple questions. Where is the normal meeting held tomorrow, where this will be being passed out possibly, because I'd love to get my hands on some.
It's at the Village Ballroom at 700 Northeast Deacon, about 2 blocks off of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, or MLK.
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, my next question was, I've been trying to find some information about dispensaries in Oregon. Is there any news?
No, there are no dispensaries in Oregon currently.
Yeah, that's the
The
problem.
law, as it's currently worded, precludes dispensaries. It says that no sales are allowed, and patients can only reimburse their caregiver for expenses. Now, with this Dash amendment to, what's the bill number again?
It's SB 388.
SB 388.
Dash
that
1.
would change that
Yes.
and would open up possibility for any patient or caregiver to help any other patient.
Okay.
Yeah, what I envision is maybe a farmer's market where everybody brings their product, and people are able to say, well, I'll take a half ounce of Northern Lights number 5, and I'll also take a quarter of Sensi Star and something
certain
else,
strains
and be able to
actually
walk
help out
away with the medicine they need.
Yeah,
They have a huge impact.
It's a really good thing that's going on. It just takes a lot of time, and I really am glad you guys are doing this, and you keep it up. And I'm always a frequent watcher, so
Thanks.
keep doing the great work. We'll be
All right,
waiting.
thank you.
Thanks.
For you, those of you out there who do have some time on Monday, come down to the THCF clinic. That's at the corner of Southeast 18th, a block north, or south actually, of Burnside at 105 Southeast 18th Avenue. What is it, 6:30 a.m. on Monday morning?
6:30 a.m. on Monday. We don't have a huge bus, but I don't know. I'll get the exact count. Well, we won't find out till tomorrow when we see the people who have the cool bus, but it's pretty large. Oh, I don't know. I think that we need to really concentrate on making our law as good as we can.
I agree.
You had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, on another note, last week I erroneously reported that there was a state House bill, and it wasn't a House bill, it's an initiative petition. And what's going on is the Sheriff's Association, along with several other people, have 3 initiative petitions that they are trying to get enough signatures to pass, and it's called the Oregon Crime Control Act. Each one of these would eliminate the medical marijuana program and replace it with a cannabinoid system, and we all know all of the arguments against that. So anyway, they're looking for signatures. So if you happen to come across the IP 3132 or 33 from the State Sheriff's Association, I recommend you use your conscience and sign it if you want to, but I don't intend to myself.
Just say no.
Just say no
to ending medical marijuana programs.
That's it.
Revamping them. I guess we have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys that new Senate bill that they introduced to try to limit hashish.
Yes.
Does that include the oil, like using canola oil and then putting it in the crock pot?
No, not oil extracts, but concentrates of cannabis.
Okay.
That's one of the things that baffles me about it, because it's already spoken to in our law and statute. It says marijuana or any preparations or mixtures thereof.
Exactly.
And so hash is already covered. I really believe who needs a training manual is law enforcement, because they don't seem to get the law, or they just choose to interpret it differently. And I find it very troubling. I just want to add one thing, Paul, to what you said about Eric Holder and the raid stopping.
Sure.
I got this quote from Russ sent it out from Barry McCaffrey. He said that he's worried about he's not in public life anymore, so I care about 6th graders through 12th graders. If you are 40 years old and you're living in Oregon and you have 12 giant pot plants in your behind your log cabin, you know what I mean? Knock yourself out, because he doesn't care. I am so glad to hear that from Barry McCaffrey. Boy, a lot of my
we're all
friends.
in log cabins here in Oregon, though.
Yeah, I know. I think that's kind of cute.
That is.
Does that include honey oil, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, all of that's legal as long as it doesn't weigh more than 24 ounces. And a lot of that stuff is pretty heavy, oils and that.
Oils can be very,
so
very
you
heavy.
need to be really careful with that.
Honey oil, I think, would be a hashish type preparation. So the new bill would limit the production of that. But for oil extracts, such as extracts using canola oil or other vegetable oils, that wouldn't be a concentrate. So
you can't have more than 24 ounces of liquid oil?
Of
You can't have 24 ounces of, that's your
accumulated total.
Then 24 ounces of marijuana or any preparation
form.
thereof.
Okay, I'm going to have to make some brownies.
There you go.
Better do it.
Those
Those
are
the Oregon
heavier.
Normal meeting tomorrow.
We'll be there.
Yeah, that's the
whole
Oregon
lot of
Normal
brownies.
medical card holder meeting. It's tomorrow at 11:30.
Yes, it is.
At 700 Northeast Deacom Street, just 2 blocks off of MLK. I think it's like 5900 block. It's a ways north.
I think the address is actually
medicine
700
too?
Northeast.
Yeah, 700 Northeast Deacom, but Deacom's like the 5900 block of MLK, so it's a ways north of Burnside, for instance.
Burnside.
It's just 3 blocks
All right,
south
thanks
of
for your
Lombard.
call.
Thank you very much. You guys
You're
have a
welcome.
Yeah,
good
we have
one.
some
Keep
nice
up the good
brownies
work.
right here.
Yeah, somebody's made some. Looks like somebody's eaten some of them, though,
Sylvia,
before I got here.
I'm going to have to
Say
eat some
that.
of that, too.
So, Tim
Yes.
Orvald, how are you doing?
I'm fine, Paul.
You got to be a little tired after this busy week.
It's been a very busy week, but
We're so happy
I
to have
think
you back
that
on the show, though.
in the long term, it simply tells us all how popular this program has become, in large part because of the two of you, and we are privileged and honored to have you as leaders. I would be remiss in saying that I need to get a shot across the bow from a medical standpoint.
Please.
I want to remind people that basically what we have is medical clinics that take care of people with chronic pain syndromes. The people that come in and see us have pain of one sort or another number, and there are myriad pain syndromes. The majority of pain patients that we see are people who have chronic back and neck pain because it's a vulnerable area. But one of the points I think it's important for us to concentrate on is that all these people come in having been placed on barbiturates and narcotics. Many of these people have been on narcotics and barbiturates sometimes for years. Many of them are addicts and do not even realize that they are addicts. And one of the things that we try to do is to raise their consciousness level to the iniquities of these narcotics. Long term, they can injure you. They can injure you cerebrally. They can injure you gastrointestinal. They can injure your kidneys and your livers. So we try to get people's sensitivities and direct them towards the use of cannabis, which is non-toxic and non-addicting. And if we can start to wean these people away from some of these strong narcotics with the use of the wonderful medication that cannabis offers us, we have done a real service to them.
I agree.
So true.
Yes.
And I'd say that's probably amounts to about 60% of the patients we see in all of our clinics, wherever they be, whether it's Oregon, Washington, Michigan, or, as I was yesterday, seeing patients in Montana. My pygmy pony over by the dental floss bush, but that's another story. So, we have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hi, my name is Robert.
Hey, Robert.
A friend of mine's a card holder. He's had a couple cards, but apparently one of his expired. He sent off for it. Meanwhile, a few days ago, the police come in and raided him. He explained to them about his cards and whatnot. They were real rude about everything, like, you know, everybody in the house was a criminal or whatnot. I live in a separate apartment from his house. I rent out his garage. It's totally separate, and he told them they have nothing to do with it. It's a separate thing. They proceeded to bang on my door, woke me up out of a dead sleep, and my girlfriend with guns pointed to our face.
That's frightening.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I was totally asleep. And I come in, they're all handcuffed, and they're getting ready to go in the house, and he's got his guns drawn, and we're telling him the dog doesn't like guns, you know, for the dog and your safety, just don't put your gun away. But Mr. Gung Ho went in there with his gun out anyways. So that was a little scary. It kind of turns out that he was 2 plants over for one card, even though his second card was legal on the 20th, and they came in and busted him on the 24th. But they trashed his plant room. They tore it apart. They brought dirt up into the house and messed up his house, but yet they were complaining, saying that, you know, your house might be a little dirty for your kids to live in. Well, they're toys and stuff. Kids play. But yet they can bring dirt and crud in the house and make a total mess out of everything.
Where were you?
Did they come in there with a search warrant?
Yeah, they had a search warrant.
And what was that search warrant based upon? Do you know?
I really couldn't tell you. It was something about looking for something in his house under his name.
If I were you, I'd have him look into the discovery of why they obtained that search warrant. Because as a card holder, they shouldn't have been coming in there with a search warrant. They should have done an investigation and seen that was a medical marijuana grow location. Was this in Multnomah County?
Yeah, this is in southeast Portland.
I see. Unfortunately, these drug officers are gung-ho. They think they have God on their side. Little do they know that we have God on our side.
Yes.
Okay,
And God
another
is
thing
too.
is, we were all cooperating 100%. You know, there's no reason not to. He's got his cards, right? So a little later on, he wants me to go out to my the garage where I live and get my ID and my girlfriend's ID. We were walking out there with him. I was anyways by myself and stuff. And he goes, "Don't do anything I don't like, any moves that I don't like, or I'll shoot you." And I'm a bad shot. It's going to take me a couple of times. So here now this guy's just threatening my life, you know, to shoot me. How do I know?
You know, these cops have no morals. They're disgusting. They it just really upsets me to hear stories like that.
Yeah, it upsets
Those
me
people
too,
should be fired. They're the ones who need to be in prison for a long time, if you ask me.
That's what I was thinking. That was wrong, And then they took all his plants except for like 3, which even with this one card he had allowed him to have more. So
Right.
isn't that stealing? Didn't they just steal from a medical
Yeah,
person?
exactly.
Should they be held for the same thing as a common thief?
Seems to me he needs an attorney.
Yeah. Paul Loney will be at our meeting tomorrow, and there's John Lucy. They're both normal legal committee attorneys, and so you should maybe look into an attorney for your friend.
Okay.
Don't you agree?
Oh, wholeheartedly.
We
And
had
another
one
thing,
case that Brian Michaels worked on in Lynn County, and he got over $70,000 because they violated that patient's rights.
It sounds like this
because now
fellow's
his
rights were
patients have to
violated
go to
too.
the street like a common criminal.
Yeah.
to
It
get
sounds like
their
your
medicine.
rights were violated, and that you were threatened with murder.
Yeah, I
You
was
did
threatened with
anything
my
you didn't
life
like.
if I moved wrong. I don't know what makes a move wrong.
You should talk to an attorney and sue these folks and make Multnomah County pay.
And it's Multnomah County Sheriffs, is that who you're talking about?
They were undercover.
There's probably the Drug Task Force.
Drug task
that's
force.
Yeah,
frustrating.
that's an
The Drug
interagency.
Task Force that are the true
that's an
believers
interagency.
in this malarkey,
You know what I thought
unfortunately.
was really amazing is that during the statistics at the ACMM meeting, they actually showed that during the harvest season, the lead searches are up.
Mm-hmm.
They go up, and I thought, why? Why are they? Well, obviously they're searching for the harvest, but I find it very frustrating because they're not supposed to be fishing. They're supposed to only do it with
They also told us
cause.
that if you make any oils or butter or cookies or brownies, it's totally illegal.
Yeah, it sounds like,
we
as
told
I'm
no,
being
no,
reminded
it's
here,
not.
armed robbery with a badge, and unfortunately it happens all too often. And often they take the marijuana for their own, to sell on the black market themselves to pad their retirement fund.
Exactly what I was thinking. We just
Yeah.
been ripped off.
That's why these folks become drug officers to start with. They want to get a hold of the graft money, and so that's what drives a lot of them to that. But thanks for your call, and thanks for giving us insight into that.
Thank you for your show. I really enjoy every week. It's great.
You're welcome. We have a film clip, and we'll be back in just a second, so I hope you enjoy this.
This is your normal daily audio stash hemp headlines for the week concluding February 27th, 2009. I'm Radical Russ Belville. Speaking at a press conference devoted to an operation against the Mexican Sinaloa cartel, Attorney General Eric Holder declared that ending medical marijuana raids is, quote, now American policy. A reporter asked, quote, shortly after the inauguration, there were raids on California medical marijuana dispensaries. Do you expect these to continue? End quote, noting that the president had promised to end the raids in the campaign. Acting DEA Administrator Michelle Leonhardt, who gave the go-ahead to a raid in Tahoe, California, just 2 days after the president's inauguration, and to subsequent raids in the Los Angeles area this month, stood beside the Attorney General as he made this proclamation.
Well, what the president said during the campaign, you'll be surprised to know, will be consistent with what we'll be doing here in law enforcement. He was my boss during the campaign. He is formally and technically and by law my boss now. And so what he said during the campaign is now American policy.
Drug policy organizations mark the day of Holder's announcement as a significant shift in U.S. drug policy. Speaking from NORML's headquarters in Washington, D.C., Executive Director Alan St. Pierre said, quote, 225 just might be the new 420. This is the most support we've seen for positive marijuana law reform from officials in Washington since President Jimmy Carter called on Congress to decriminalize marijuana in 1978. Speaking at a landmark press conference on Tuesday, California Assemblyman Tom Amiano, Democrat of San Francisco, introduced comprehensive legislation to tax and regulate the commercial production and sale of cannabis in a manner similar to alcohol. Assemblyman Amiano said, quote, with the state in the midst of an historic economic crisis, the move toward regulating and taxing marijuana is simply common sense. This legislation would generate much-needed revenue for the state, restrict access to those only 21 or over, end the environmental damage to our public lands from illicit crops, and improve public safety by redirecting law enforcement efforts to more serious crimes. California has the opportunity to be the first state in the nation to enact a smart, sensible public policy for the control and regulation of marijuana, end quote. The proposal is the first marijuana legalization bill ever introduced in California. As introduced, Amiano's measure would allow for the licensed production and sale of cannabis to consumers aged 21 and over. Licensed cultivators would pay an excise tax of $50 per ounce of cannabis. In addition, the proposal will impose a sales tax on commercial sales. Amiano's proposal would not affect the state's medical marijuana law, allowing patients and caregivers to grow their own medicine. If enacted, the measure would raise over $1 billion per year in state revenue, according to an economic analysis by California Normal. Amiano's bill comes at a time of growing public support for legalization of marijuana. A recent Zogby poll reported that nearly 6 in 10 West Coast voters supported taxing and regulating marijuana like alcohol. Former drug czar Barry McCaffrey spoke Monday at the Council on Foreign Relations on the topic of U.S.-Mexico relations in the face of escalating drug war violence on Mexico's northern border that has left over 6,000 people dead. Police and government anti-drug forces are routinely infiltrated by the powerful drug cartels who offer bribes as large as $500,000 to look the other way. McCaffrey, who was President Clinton's drug czar from 1996 to 2001, was asked about changes in drug policy that might defund the cartels, which make an estimated 60% to 75% of their business in the trafficking of marijuana. When asked about legalization of drugs, including domestic production of marijuana that would bankrupt the cartels, McCaffrey said this.
You know, there's
go first.
There's a 10-minute answer. There's an hour answer, there's a 3-day answer, and fortunately, since I'm not in public life, I actually don't care. I care about 6th graders through 12th graders. And if you're 40 years old, you're living in Oregon, and you have 12 giant pot plants in the back of your log cabin, knock yourself out.
McCaffrey went on to say that while the legalization of marijuana is a good intellectual argument, he continued by saying, quote, "The legalization of drugs, we're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. Parents aren't going to do it. Police chiefs, employers, we can debate it all we want. It's already de facto a not prosecutable offense everywhere in the country. By and large in this country, we don't prosecute." End quote. This has been your Normal Daily Audio Stash Weekly Hemp Headlines. For more news and information and interviews for the cannabis community, tune into stash.normal.org on the internet. For Normal, I'm Radical Russ Belville.
All right, thank you, Russ.
Russ.
We had a little
Beautiful.
crossover in our news there. A couple of them were the same, and then your story was.
But it was a really great story. I mean,
It was.
all of it is just so exciting.
All of them deserve to be repeated. I just want to go out to my log cabin right now and
grow my 12 giant plants. Yay!
My 12 marijuana plants.
We're putting 12 outside in May, isn't it? What day? Woodfield? No, what day, Woodfield? I was told May 21st is when you're supposed to put them out.
It depends on the light cycle and the weather, but I would say April 21st is a lot closer to the right date.
Well, if you're going to grow giant pumpkins, it's May the 1st. That's when they put theirs in. So, you're probably close on all 3 counts.
Right in there. It all depends. I put them out in March, and I put them out in July, and you just put them out when you can.
Whether you're at 2,000 feet or, sea level or 5,000 feet,
that makes a big difference.
We were once trying to get rid of a plant that looked like it was dying, and we're trying to be really, as kind as possible. Put it on the compost heap, and guess what? It just took off. It was amazing. But it's very exciting.
Someone says that a cold frame, you can do it after the 21st of March, but I think the light cycle needs to increase a little past that 12 hours. You need to be up over 13 hours, I think.
Well, I do want to mention the Global Cannabis March that's coming up.
Cannabis March, that's March 2nd?
No, it's
May 2nd.
May 2nd.
May 2nd.
Right. This is our 10th annual. Yes.
There's a nifty poster.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it nice?
From Global March headquarters in New York City, but there's over 240.
Right, taking place.
300
cities on this one. I'm really excited about it, and I wanted to let everybody know that we're going to have Human and the Human Revolution.
One of my favorite bands.
I know they're your favorites. And we're also going to have Chief Greenbud, and you can listen to his music at chiefgreenbud.com. And he was the winner of the 2008 Global Marijuana Music Award for Best Male Artist for his song "Another Dry Day."
All right.
Isn't that exciting?
He's got a lot of really good songs. I look forward to seeing him there. And
a nomination. He got a nomination for the 2008 High Times Dubious Awards for Best New Underground Artist. Isn't that exciting? I just love that kid, and he's coming back for the march. So come on out and meet everybody. THC and Oregon Normal are putting it together, and we're pretty excited about it. We have a full police escort. It takes place, as I said, May 2nd. We'll try to get everybody there by 11:30 because we march at high noon.
Yep, high noon.
It's really exciting, and I hear that we might try to get Norm Stamper. Is that his name?
The Seattle police chief,
exactly,
who,
to be our Grand Marshal.
Has been in favor of legalization
I think
for
it's
some
exciting.
years.
Yes.
I guess we have another phone call. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Don, and
hi, Don.
Nice to see all you guys up there. I haven't seen Dr. Orwell for quite a while. And
we're glad to have him back.
Saw Madeline.
We got to get him into Portland on Fridays more. He works up in Seattle usually on Fridays, and this week we booked him into Portland on Friday.
Oh, that's wonderful. And anyway, I just got a quick question. You were talking about ingesting cannabis by putting it in capsules, and it says you got to cook it first, and some people have said you could put it on a cookie sheet, and what temperature in the oven? And
about 225 degrees Fahrenheit. That causes the carbon dioxide molecule to split off. That activates it medicinally, or it's a process called decarboxylation.
And about how long do you leave it in there? 225.
20 minutes. 20 minutes is usually sufficient.
Great.
You can do it longer, but 20 minutes is good enough. And then you put it in your capsules, and you're ready to go. You want to let it dry out first. You want to let it cure for at least a week. You don't want to take it directly off the plant and immediately try to cook it, because that doesn't do it. You got to let it dry out for about a week and then cook it.
Is there any other way that's easier than putting it in capsules?
Well, you can put it in butter and cook it in with anything else. I like it with blueberry muffins. A lot of people like it with brownies. All depends.
I don't eat brownies 3 times a day, though.
Yeah, me either. That's where the capsules come in handy.
Oh,
you know?
Great.
You can also make tinctures
out of it. That's true. There's alcohol-based tincture or glycerin-based tincture.
I made one out of honey because I figured, what does everybody have in their cupboard? And most people have a honey bear in there. Mm-hmm. And I just heat up the honey on the stove and then add the cannabis to it. And after you grind it up and, take all the little sticks out of it, it's really good with your tea in the evening.
That's wonderful. I'm going to get started on it right away.
There you
all right.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your call.
Thanks for your call.
So, Dr. Orwald, you heard about the Olympic gold medal winner Michael Phelps. I know he won 14 gold medals. Was it 8 in one Olympics in this last time? It doesn't look like marijuana has inhibited his propensity to get more gold medals than any other human in history.
Well, Paul, many of our athletes, and I know a lot of these guys because in my lifetime I interface with many athletes. But so many of the professional athletes today are using human growth hormone and steroids to enhance their physical capabilities. And I thought it was kind of interesting that Michael chose not to use any kind of steroid or human growth hormone, but used cannabis, and obviously it enabled him to grow fins and become probably the greatest swimmer that we have ever had. And I thought it was kind of ironic that this was finally picked up. I also one last little comment. I got a kick out of Obama's response to somebody who had inquired about his use of cannabis. Now, we all know that a former president had an inquiry directed at him on the use of cannabis, and his response wasn't accepted by the vast majority of people. He said he did not inhale, but Obama, being an honest and an intellectual individual, said, yes, I inhaled. Of course, that's what you're supposed to do. And if there was one thing that I was in favor of when we decided on voting for this great man, it was that.
Yeah, I'm really taken aback by the fact that he's moving forward with his campaign pledge to stop the raids on medical marijuana, and he said he's going to bring science to the forefront. After 3 or 4 generations of the federal government lying about marijuana, saying that marijuana has no medicinal applications whatsoever, in the face of dozens of studies and scientific reports and research, it's good to see that finally science is going to play some role in U.S. drug policy.
One last comment, Paul. I am so impressed with this man. You know that one of the great new ways of treating untreatable diseases is going to be with human stem cells. And during the previous administrations, all the funding for human stem cells was cut off. And as soon as Obama got into the office, he refunded research into human stem cells. Now, these stem cells, we are going to find out how to command these cells to regenerate certain types of tissue. And this will ultimately result in curing diseases that are now not curable. So it's another reason to applaud this fine gentleman.
I agree.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We got a call from Obama campaign asking for a donation, and I said to them that I would be happy to give them a donation as soon as they stop the raids on medical marijuana providers. And I'm going to have to go deep down in my pocket and get $100 up for him
All
now.
right. Well,
I mean, it's not much, but it gets their attention, I'll tell you.
it does indeed.
Yes.
I donated a little bit myself and to the inauguration, but
Yes,
not a
it's
great deal. But I'm certainly proud to. It's the first time in my lifetime we have a president I feel like to be proud of.
Oh, I'm so proud.
Great step forward.
Yes.
We have another caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hello, this is Constance, and I want to say a special hello and a thank you to Madeline. You did so much to help me get through the process as quickly and easily as possible, and I just have to thank you all for the great work you do. I am 75 years old, a cancer survivor, losing my ability to be ambulatory because of extreme pain from peripheral neuropathy and osteoporosis. And doctor, every time I go to a doctor with a complaint, their only response to me is, oh, it's age-related. Here, take some antidepressants. And I'm not depressed. I'm in pain. Yeah. I'm a joyous person. I am not depressed. I love life. And they just keep trying to give me these terrible things that alter my mind and my consciousness.
Well, once you start those, you can't just quit them. You've got to cut them back slowly because they have deadly side effects if you just go cold turkey with some of those antidepressants.
Oh, I never accepted them because I read the literature. When a doctor prescribes something to me, I read the literature first, and I'm become my own best health advocate. And when I read the possibility that my healthy liver, my healthy kidneys, my healthy heart would be compromised and put in danger by
does not sound like the right drug to be taking. I agree.
And I know that since I've gotten your help to get my card through fast and everything, I am at my pain management is at a level that I can actually smile and enjoy the day again. And I thank you. God bless you for the wonderful work you do.
So thank you. Thanks for your call. And
we'll see you tomorrow at the cardholder meeting, right, Constance?
I would love to think so, darling, but I don't have a card yet, and I don't have a car. So
well, soon, next month.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. I want to remind our viewers that our award-winning THCF medicinal garden has classes. Our gardener Andrew, the medicine man, will be teaching those every Wednesday night. And you're welcome to come down to our office at 105 Southeast 18th Avenue if you'd like to take part in those classes. We have beginning, intermediate, and advanced gardening classes. We have classes on making medicinal grade hashish. That's probably one of the more popular ones. And a number of others. So come on down to every Wednesday night at 5:30 to see Andrew, the medicine man, Angarud, if you're interested in taking those classes. If you're out there and you think you qualify for medical marijuana, the conditions are chronic pain, chronic muscle spasms, seizures, gastrointestinal ailments, severe nausea, cancer, AIDS, and glaucoma. And we have doctors all across the United States, like Dr. Orvald here, who can help you. Just call us at 1-800-723-0188. It's 1-800-723-0188. Would you like to say anything in closing, Doctor? No? What about you, Madeline?
Hey, just come out to the Oregon normal cardholder meeting. Paul, are you going to be there?
Yes.
Paul will be there and meet a lot of great people.
Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp. Good night.